Hello. We are starting chapter 4 of Call It Courage today. Remember, Mafatu has just made a fire. He's got himself some food to eat, and he's built himself a little shelter. And so he's had a good night's sleep. The very next morning, Mafatu set about building his canoe. He had banked his fire the night before in the natural shelter of a cave, and he resolved never to let the sparks die out, for it was altogether too difficult to make fire with the fire stick, and it required too much time. In Hikaru, for that reason, the fires were always kept burning, and it was the special charge of the younger members of a family to see that the fuel was ever at hand. Woe unto the small boy who let the family fires go out. While his breakfast roasted in the coals, the boy cleared the brush away from the base of the great tamanu, that was the tree. There was no wood better for canoe building than this. It was tough, durable, yet buoyant in the water. Mafatu could fell his tree by fire and burn it out too. Later, he would grind an adze out of basalt for the finished work. An adze is like a kind of a combination between a hatchet and a hammer. It's like a sharp thing that you can use to dig out things with. The adze would take a long time, but he had made them often in Hikaru, and he knew just how to go about it. The boy was beginning to realize that the hours he had spent fashioning utensils were to stand him now in good stead. Nets and knives and shark line, implements and shellfish hooks, he knew how to make them all. How he had hated those tasks in Hikaru. He was quick and clever with his hands, and now he was grateful for the skill which was his. The fire crackled and snapped about the base of the tamanu tree. When at length it had eaten well into the trunk, Mafatu climbed aloft and crept cautiously out upon a large branch that overhung the beach. Then, taking firm hold of the branches above his head, he began to jump up and down. As the fire ate deeper into the trunk, the tree began to lean under the boy's weight. With a snap and a crash, it fell across the sand. As it fell, Mafatu leaped free of the branches as nimbly as a cat. Wow, that sounds dangerous to Grandma. That's enough for today, Yuri, he decided. Tomorrow we'll build our fires down the trunk and start burning it out. When the eaters of men come, we will be ready. In the meantime, there were many other things to do. A fish trap of bamboo, a net of sennet, a fish hook too, if only he could find some bone. And while the canoe was building, how could Mafatu get out to the distant reef to set his trap? Unless first he made a raft of bamboo. The boy decided that the raft was of first importance. He chose a score or more of fine bamboos as large around as his arm. Felling them by fire, then he lashed them together with strips of pareu bark, making a sturdy raft of 2 thicknesses. It would serve him well until his canoe should be finished. As he worked, his mind returned again and again to the wild pig he was determined to kill. How could he go back to Hikaru without a boar's tooth necklace? Why, that necklace was almost as important as a canoe. For by that token, Med would know his strength and courage. When the day came that he should leave this high island, he would sail to the north and east. Somewhere in that quarter lay the cloud of islands, which extend across 1,000 miles of ocean and 10 degrees of latitude. Within those reef-spiked channels floated Hikaru, his homeland. There was no doubt in his mind that he would find it. I think that would be pretty tough to find one little island in thousands of miles of ocean. But he was confident he could. For Maui, who had led him safe to this shore, would someday guide him home again. That's what Mafatu believed. But first, Mafatu knew he must prove himself worthy. Men should never again call him Mafatu, the boy who was afraid. And Tavananui should say with pride, "Here is my son, come home from the sea." Kiwi the albatross came and went on his mysterious errands, emerging out of blue space and vanishing into it again. At sundown, regularly, the white bird came wheeling and circling to alight clumsily on the beach, almost at Mafatu's side, while Yuri pranced about and greeted his friend after his own fashion. As for Yuri, he was having the time of his life, for there were countless seabirds nesting along the shore to be chased, and wild goats and pigs in the mountains to make life exciting enough for any dog. Mafatu had discovered a mulberry tree. He stripped off the bark and removed the inner white lining. Then he wet the fiber and laid it upon a flat stone and set about beating it with a stick of wood. The fiber spread and grew thinner under the persistent beating. The boy added another strip, wet it, and beat it into the first one, then another and another. Soon he had a yard of cloth to serve as a periu. It was soft and white, and now at last he was clothed. Remember, he didn't have any clothes. He'd lost all his clothes in the storm, so he had been naked until now. He finally made enough cloth to make himself a little wrap that he could wrap around his waist. Before I go home, I will make a dye of ava and paint a fine design on my periu, the boy promised himself. I must not go back ill-clothed and empty-handed. Men must know that I have conquered the sea and made the land serve me as well. Remember, Grandma loves you. Good night.